Ankit Panda is an international affairs analyst in New York tonight, and David Schmerler is a research associate with a focus on nuclear non-proliferation. He's in Monterey, California. So, Ankit, I'll start with you. The day began with the Secretary of State seemingly trying to calm things somewhat, but now we've got more rhetoric from Mattis and more rhetoric from North Korea threatening another test. What's your read? How serious is this?
Absolutely. I think the latest statement to come out of North Korea is concerning. It was last in 1998 that North Korea decided to overfly Japan with a rocket that wasn't even a ballistic missile. It was their Taepodong-1 satellite. And the statement they've released suggests that they might be considering carrying out a ballistic missile test, potentially involving 4 ballistic missiles, with a trajectory that would end those missiles landing near Guam, which is incredibly provocative. They've never done anything like this. They could potentially land within the United States exclusive economic zone, and the United States might have to attempt to shoot these missiles down using its SM-3 interceptors in the Sea of Japan. And if that fails, that also introduces interesting complications for alliance reassurance and also for the credibility of U.S. ballistic missile defense. So I think overall, this is quite a concerning and escalatory signal from North Korea.
How do you read this, David?
If the North Koreans were to follow through with a salvo launch of 4 Hwasong-12 intermediate-range ballistic missiles landing tens of miles away from the island of Guam, this would be the most provocative act they have probably ever done.
And how would the United States respond? Like, what are they expecting?
That's where we run into a risk. Depending on how close they get to actually hitting Guam, you run the risk of the United States misinterpreting the test. And if this actually is a test, this might be North Korea's notice to the United States that they're not actually going to strike, but in fact carry out, again, the most provocative act they've ever done.
So, Ankit, this all began, or this round began, with Trump talking about fire and fury if there were any more threats from North Korea. Before, it was Kim Jong-un who was called reckless with his words. Is it words, or is he actually hoping for some kind of, not hoping, but prepared for some kind of nuclear war here?
The words of the President of the United States certainly matter, especially when it comes to nuclear weapons. The United States has a first-use nuclear doctrine, but it's incredibly rare that the United States President directly threatens nuclear first use against another country. It's not unusual that the United States would threaten to use nuclear weapons against North Korea, but previous statements, including during the Obama administration, including Jim Mattis's statement earlier today, indicated that the United States would only use nuclear weapons if North Korea were to initiate a conflict. Trump's words, however, suggested that the United States would consider fire and fury, which could mean nuclear weapons to Kim Jong-un's ears, simply based on threats from North Korea. So that's incredibly destabilizing. And if that sticks as policy, that's a quite serious change.
So how would this be read by Kim Jong-un, do you think, David?
Well, depending on whether or not they carry out this test, Trump's rhetoric might actually be causing, or at least making the North Koreans consider much more provocative tests so that they are taken more seriously.
You don't believe that Kim Jong-un wants to attack the United States, but that could be provoked into it?
I think the reasoning in Pyongyang is that if a conflict were to break out, that would possibly, or more than likely, lead to the end of the regime. And the reason why they've invested so much time and money into these weapon systems is to try to deter the United States from intervening on the peninsula with conventional forces.
Ankit, do you see that North Korea actually didn't want a war here?
Absolutely. I think the reason that they've pursued nuclear weapons is to achieve a deterrent against the United States carrying out an invasion. The United States has been deterred by North Korea for decades by its conventional forces, which have threatened Seoul for decades. It has biological and chemical weapons. The interesting thing that we have now is that North Korea is capable of delivering a nuclear weapon to the United States homeland, which we didn't have before, which gives Kim Jong-un more certainty that the United States wouldn't initiate a war. I don't think that they are ever going to consider using nuclear weapons first against a U.S. target, be it Guam, be it New York City, be it Los Angeles. I think they have this as an insurance policy to ensure that if the United States ever considers a preemptive war against North Korea, that they will be able to ensure fire and fury, to put it using Trump's words, against the United States in return.
So, David, here we are. Is peace still on the horizon? What can be done to scale back here? Or where's this heading?
I think the first course of action to be taken to try to cool down the situation would be to stop using reckless rhetoric and to stop using terms that you would often hear coming out of North Korea from the president's office. Try to have a more unified message coming across from the entire administration instead of the Secretary of State offering one suggestion and the president offering another. I think that communication between the North Koreans and the United States is key to solving, or at least attempting to solve, some of this issue.
But is it possible to improve relations now? Okay.
It is, I think. It requires will in both Washington and Pyongyang, and I think out of Pyongyang we won't see that coming first. Certainly there is a deficit of trust in this bilateral relationship, to put it lightly. Washington hasn't been able to speak with one voice, and it matters now more than ever with the introduction of North Korea's ICBM that the Trump administration begin to speak with one voice on North Korea policy, and that it choose to talk to Kim Jong-un to at least de-escalate tensions from where they are today.
Do you see that happening, David, at this point? Talk?
Right now, no, but I certainly hope that the administration is considering it.
How dangerous a point are we at right now? Rex Tillerson was saying Americans should sleep well tonight. Ankit, Colin?
I don't think that North Korea will be looking to strike the United States first. So in that sense, I also hope that the United States isn't considering any sort of preemptive action against North Korea. The time for preventative war is over. North Korea has demonstrated an ICBM, and I'm not willing to bet against their capability to deliver a nuclear weapon to the United States homeland today. So in that sense, I hope that both sides realize that there are good reasons not to start a war, and that each of them deter the other, and that they consider talks to simply walk each other back from the brink.
Thanks so much to both of you. Lots to watch for there. Thank you.